What's just here? We can do podcast. We can have for podcast.
We're broadcasting right now.
Yeah.
Broadcasting the title and starting that and then.
Sure thing. I can. Yeah, you have my information, and I'm your expert on this one. So you can send me or whatever. Add me to your message if you use. No, I'm already sorry. You have a problem. I can hear you. Yes. Oh, that's oh, it's only myself. Because I work for the company 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I just started. That's okay. I work for a company. I'm working for an company, which is very some software. No, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. That's okay. I had a 3 interviews. Yeah, it's really good. I just work for that company. I don't feel good. I don't give it, and I don't need There's I didn't do this yet, but I may transfer that to my So how much money you have? Yeah. That's not risk. You definitely should pay for data. Yeah. No. Somebody make that. I use it. Let's go never home. So you don't need a picture. Yeah. So you can cancel your text or yeah. Otherwise, you will take it.
What I did today was that I sent it up here and then
Hi everybody. The mic here, I'm told, is just for audio in the room. They're recording us actually over on this thing over here. So as long as you can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm Jim Millis, and this is Connie Crosby.
Hi.
And we do various projects together. I'm from Buffalo, Connie's here in Toronto. And I do a podcast called Check This Out, which I'm a librarian, that's what I do, so we check out those.
I never got that one.
Yeah, that's one of these, this is one of the things to put some planning into when you're planning a podcast, is come up with a cleverer name than this. Because I found out that if you Google Check This Out, you're going to get a million things before you'll find that website.
I always liked it though, because I'm always saying, check this out. So
yeah, so I thought it was free advertising, but unfortunately they advertise everything else in the world with my podcast. But yeah, I have a logo, which I have buttons for those of you who want it. So it looks like a little Japanese letter or something, but actually it's just a colleague of mine did this, and it's a CTO, and it also kind of looks like an ear, I think. So what we want to do with this session, and Connie, we purposely didn't plan much. We wanted to have this very much sort of free-flowing and brainstorming and have a lot of interaction from the audience. And the idea being that, let's first of all get a sense of where people are in the audience. How many of you do a podcast currently? Good, excellent.
You'll be helping us.
How many of you are here because you're thinking about doing a podcast? Perfect.
Excellent.
Yay.
That's
Okay.
where I am actually.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on this. Connie is my Canadian correspondent on my podcast. And we periodically do call-ins and interviews and things like that. I just want to talk briefly about how I started doing my podcast and why I started doing it. And then just a couple of principles, I think, to think about when you're planning to do a podcast. I guess first of all is, why do you want to do a podcast? I know for me it was simply because I started listening to podcasts. I started listening actually to NPR podcasts, and then I found these independent ones, and I pretty much gave up on the NPR pretty quickly. But I like the feel of the podcasting community as much as any individual podcast, and particularly Canadian podcasts. This was even before Mark and Bob started the Canadian podcast buffet and things like that. That there was just there was a real community there that I felt, that people were listening to each other's podcasts, talking about each other's podcasts, commenting on them and a real sort of sharing that was going on. And I wanted to be part of that. So I said, okay, I'm going to be part of that. Now what do I do? So I thought, well, what I do, I'm a law librarian at a law school. So what do I know? I know about law and I know about libraries. So I'll talk about that. And for me, it was more a matter of planning my audience necessarily than planning sort of, and then the topics and the themes sort of came from planning my audience. I wanted to teach other librarians about podcasting. So that was part of it. I wanted to appeal to librarians and have them listen to and learn this new technology. I also wanted to teach the people I work with, the lawyers and law students, about what librarians do. How many of you in this room know a librarian besides Connie and me? You do.
Wow, okay.
Well, podcast, geek, library, that goes all those together well. But a lot of people don't. And how many of you could explain in 25 words what a law librarian does? Well, if you listen to my podcast,
you may know my sister, Mary Sullivan.
Yes.
yes, okay.
Oh, okay, I know Mary very well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But for me, it was an audience of wanting to get the law professors, lawyers, law students that we work with to understand what we do. So it was sort of a bi-directional audience. So I guess one principle that I would start with, and I'm going to talk for a little bit first, and then we'll turn over. One principle is a lot of people say, first thing you do a lot of planning. Plan your topics, plan what you're going to do, plan, is it going to be a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever you're going to do. I did no planning. I just decided I want to do a podcast and I'm going to start doing it. Of course, that's because I'm doing a personal podcast. And Connie was talking about, it'd be different if you're talking about commercial or business
When
oriented.
you're doing business, you probably want to plan it pretty carefully, I would think.
Yeah. So I think, I don't recommend going back and listening to my first few podcasts. They're pretty rough. And I think if I were doing it for a business, I would have done those first few podcasts and not released them. But for me, just for myself, I didn't care. I just wanted to get them out there and start getting used to the idea of doing it. So that's probably one thing. I guess one rule that I would mention is, in podcasting, there are no rules. People will give you a lot of advice, I think, about what works, what doesn't work. But for every bit of advice, every one of those rules, I can think of a podcast that doesn't follow them and does a great job. How many of you listen to Dry Shave? It's an excellent podcast. They have no introduction, no music. It's just this sort of free-form little bits of vignettes of life, and it's impossible to describe, but it's really, really good. If you ever listen to Z and Z with Karen and Ross, they sort of transformed into doing this one they call Dry Shave. So that's one thing. I think depending on your audience, what your goals are for your podcast, that should drive it. You listen, get advice from other people, but don't think that you have to follow any of it, including what I say. And the other thing I would say is sort of as a principle in terms of getting started with podcasting is if something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Don't worry about perfection. Don't feel like I can't do it because I'm not going to be really, really good at it. If you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. This podcasting is great for that sort of approach, I think. You get better as you do it. So don't be intimidated about it.
So what we're going to do now is do some brainstorming with you and hope to get your ideas going. I'm going to actually switch this over to editing mode, and we're going to, let's see now, go to the next slide. And I'm going to sort of type out what we're talking about, use this as our whiteboard. So probably the first thing on your mind is, what are you going to podcast? What is going to be sort of the subject area? Let's get an idea in the room. How many people are thinking of doing this just for a personal hobby type of thing? So roughly half. How many people are thinking of doing it to promote something, an organization? And how many out of those of you, how many are thinking of doing it for business? So both, of course. So a really good mix here. So I guess if you're going to promote your business, pretty much you're thinking about talking about your business. Is that, would that be fair to say?
Or products.
Your products,
Yes.
okay, that's good.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see, promoting organization. Promoting products, okay. What else, if you were doing it for a business, what else would you?
Sorry, I was thinking more on the hobbies thing.
Okay, on the hobby side, what would you cover?
It's all about what you're passionate about. It's all about what you're interested in. Because what I have found, even before podcasting caught fire, the blogs that I was interested in were the ones that people are just on fire about what they're doing. I'll read a knitting blog, or I'll listen to a knitting podcast,
Yeah.
because the person is just completely involved in it.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the, I went to the Podcasting and Portable Media Expo, PME, in California in September. And the best program I thought that I went to was done by Dave Slusher, who does Evil Genius Chronicles. And his topic was, amateur means you do it for love. And I really like that idea.
Something else on the sort of personal side would be family communication, just communicating with friends.
Oh, okay.
You know about family literally around the world
Yeah.
on 4 continents. So,
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I hadn't thought of that.
I haven't heard
Yeah.
any podcasts like that.
Yeah. Yes.
I teach multimedia web design, and I know nothing whatsoever about podcasting, but I want to learn about it and teach kids how to put podcasts into their sets, because I have no clue.
Okay.
Would you be covering a little of that?
Well,
Well, one I might as well mention now, I was speaking with Jenny. Is Jenny here in the room? Way in the back. Do you want to stand up for a second and say what you're doing?
Hi there. My role, I work for Apple, and my role with Apple is to do what we call pro care training. So in each Apple store here in Toronto, we have, and in the States as well, we have what's called the studio. And people can sign up for this membership. It's $99 a year, which is the steal of the century, because you can book an hour per week, one-on-one time with one of us who are experts on a Macintosh and talk about how to podcast, how to podcast your photos, how to work in on a movie, how to do GarageBand, left, right, and center. And I'm actually looking for a volunteer, and I thought this group might be an ideal group. I just need one person though. Hand up first. All right, you're it. What we're going to do is for half an hour or so, I'm going to sit down with you. We're going to look at how to make a podcast and talk about a lot of these issues that Jim and Connie are talking about. How to kind of plan and think ahead of what you're doing in your podcast. So, and we're doing a session at 1 p.m. And so the podcast that we put together is going to be part of that session. Okay? Okay?
I think there will be a lot of sessions over these next 2 days that will deal with the technology. How do you go about recording and editing and things like that. I noticed that Sean back there has the same recorder that I'm using right here, which is just a portable digital recorder. He's got on this tripod there, and you can just carry it around with you. It costs $300 US. It's pretty nice, and it makes really good quality recordings if you want to. So that's just, I think the first thing is just simply getting the audio recorded. It's it's called the Zoom H4.
That's the brand.
That's the brand, yeah. Very nice.
is it flash-based?
It uses an SD card. It's a standard SD card, like most digital cameras use.
First thing I do when I got mine was
It's just audio.
I use a Pocket PC for
Pocket, you can record from Pocket PC. You can record from right directly into a MacBook or most cameras, most laptops now have a microphone built in. You can record into a cell phone. I mean, there's all kinds of ways of getting audio depending on what you want to do with it.
What if your classroom just got PCs on that?
You can absolutely do it on one PC. It's just that it doesn't have as much built in, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sure Jenny will be talking about GarageBand and things like that. There's free software that you can use on a PC. You can download on Audacity. It's free audio editing software. Works very well. I've used both of them.
For those of you who are thinking of doing this for an organization, for a business, I highly recommend reading the book Naked Conversations. And one of the authors is Robert Scoble and Shaw Israel are the authors. It talks about blogging, but I think a lot of what they say applies to podcasting as well. How to be honest with what you're saying and really connect with your audience and not just make it like a marketing piece. You've got to have some honesty and you're trying to create a conversation with your audience to some extent and actually just open yourself up. One thing, I was at a conference where I'm a law librarian as well, and one thing I was at a conference and we were talking about why law firms would use this, and it really is about opening up your thinking. You're showing your expertise by opening up your thinking to your market, to your audience, and that's part of what. So I highly recommend that book as well for that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm also interested in the education classroom piece. I teach at the university, but our application is in community, i.e. people using whatever they happen to have, and I'm particularly interested in hearing how podcasting cannot be broadcasting, how to ensure that what we're doing is as interactive as we can make it. So anything you can say in that regard, I'm very interested.
I'm going to talk a little about educational podcasting too tomorrow about at the higher education level, grassroots academic podcasting program. So given the short time we have, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, I think for me part of it is actually getting out into the community, which is why I like to use the portable equipment that's easy to carry around with me. I think Julian Smith would be a good person to talk to. He's associated with the Homeless Nation Project. And there are a lot of projects that are out there. And again, particularly the Rabble Podcast Network here in Canada. Is anyone here associated with that?
Okay, I should say we're the Ecom, Zagora, the Netizen News, all these are little groups. Rabble's better known, but yeah, there are lots right now in Canada.
Yeah, I think more so in Canada than the U.S. Yeah, and I don't know why that is, but Canada's ahead of us in many ways. First to admit that.
Okay, let's think about where you get your content from. Where you're going to get your content. What kind of content? What is your content? And that's the next thing. Are you going to? Well, what are your ideas? I can think of a few, but where are you going to get your content from? Yes.
We draw from my email.
What you know? Okay. Is it going to be? Are you going to be taping yourself then?
Is that the point?
Well, I can say how I started too. I started out basically with just me talking, and since I said I just wanted to sort of start doing the program, I did a segment I called sort of the Weekend Logs, where I sort of would talk about what was a hot issue in the law-related blogging world. There's a lot of law blogs. And they also had a segment called Librarians in Film, which I tried to make fun and humorous, but I'm not good at that. I mean, what they say, some people say things funny, other people say funny things, and some people try to say funny things and it doesn't somehow work. And also I pretty quickly ran out of films about librarians. I found, well, I'll talk to somebody else, that'll help. And so I pretty quickly evolved into primarily an interview podcast, where I interview all kinds of people about all kinds of things.
Your podcast, can you give a little bit close to on the law?
I'm on Libsyn, the British syndication. Well, there's a blog page that goes with it, so I put my show notes there and all the links to.
Yeah. Now, do you distribute it through iTunes at all?
It's on iTunes,
iTunes,
yeah.
and through some other.
Through iTunes, yeah. It's just a matter of submitting the link to the iTunes store, and it gets listed.
Yeah, and there are other aggregators like that for
iTunes, Podcast Alley, popfeed.net. Yes.
I just want to ask a bit more about music and
Oh, yes.
sort of helping promote musicians, that sort of thing. I have a newsletter that I publish, but I'm looking for things. I try to find a way to serve.
Okay.
Great.
What's the newsletter?
Pardon me?
What's the newsletter?
It's very small. It's called Toronto World Art Scene. It's mostly about world music and
Great.
film.
So are you actually thinking of putting, I would think, any pieces of music in?
Yeah.
If you did a podcast? Yeah.
That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to be able to talk about what people are doing, how to go out and hear their music, and where to get it.
So would you be, do you think you would interview people?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And as well as putting clips in the music.
There's the other Buffalo podcaster that came up here. I don't think he's in the room, this room. He has Doc Wu is on his idea. He's the Buffalo Live Music podcast.
Oh.
He does something like that. He talks to bands and interviews them and does live shows and so on. Yes.
Music and podcasting and copyright, registration, how do you get around that?
If you want to use music in your podcast, and which I do, I guess the two main sources I use are the PodSafe Music Network. It's at music.podshow.com. It's basically a clearinghouse that brings together musicians and podcasters. Most of them are independent musicians, but there are also some big name artists who release a few of their songs onto the PodSafe Music Network, and then they're licensed for use in podcasts. And so you register as a podcaster, and you can download the songs, and you put a link in to let them know that you're playing their song. Lots of fairly well-known artists. Joseph Buell has a bunch of them. A number of them have a few songs up there, and then there's lots of independent artists that have lots of music up there.
And there's sort of cost.
No, it's free. And another source is MySpace. Although there, what I do is if I find a song that's downloadable, I'll contact the artist and say, do you mind if I use this song? Because in music, the PodSafe Music Network is designed to get music to the podcasters, but the MySpace is a sort of way of getting musicians in contact with people who are listening, and then you can just ask them. And I've always had good luck doing that. Jane Siberry. I contacted her through MySpace and let me know.
Yes.
I have an art scene, sort of arts zine that I have called Thursday Night Cafe. Just basically Canadian arts on a need-to-know basis. But one of the things that I perceive my content being, aside from just sort of touching on bands and different things happening in the city and in the country, is fiction. I put out a novel for young girls aged 8 to 12 called Sing Girls Sing. And so I saw podcasting as kind of a neat way to get not just the fiction, but the actual story out to young girls, but because the story is about 4 young girls who are 12 and they kind of come together and create a girl group, that there's this multimedia aspect that they have music, I don't know, girls to sing maybe, but it's a way of sort of making a book jump from the page.
Okay.
So I haven't seen fiction up there yet.
Yeah.
But it's another
There
option.
certainly are a lot of audiobook podcasts
Right.
that are out there.
Okay.
But you would be talking about maybe sort of building a community around the book.
I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure there's enough geeks out there who'll be happy to create the third radio series, or fifth radio series. We can check it out.
Is anyone thinking about poetry?
Ideas.
Yeah.
Poetry, okay.
Yeah, I've had a request already from a poet, but I think it's right.
Oh, great, okay. Yes?
I would like to add something about, for example, new technologies or something what we
New
will.
tech launches?
Yeah, new technology or something.
Okay. Yep. And how would you do that? Would you just talk about what you've learned, or how would you?
It's kind of, you can just talk about what I learned for this and how I use that and what affect my organization or something.
Okay.
So
Yep.
There are a lot of technology.
I
like
do
that.
subscribe a lot of them.
Yeah.
Talk about some
I guess the trick there would be figuring out what's your niche within that. You know, what are you going to be doing that Leo Laporte's not doing and that Kelly Lewis isn't doing?
Yeah, it is. But we need to find something very quite unique and useful, I think.
Yeah.
Very.
Sorry, I'd like to add some commentary to review. In the sense that I'm also an educator, hoping to do this with teams, and teams aren't going to listen to anything unless it's other teams talking about it. So, and they want to hear what other people have to say about certain things. So, reviewing the music they've just listened to, or reviewing the mall they just went to, or whatever.
Okay.
Take care.
Yes.
I was just going to share my experiences with podcasting. I was hoping you could tell me if this would be a good idea or not. I'm a PR student at Seneca College, and some students and myself are putting together a seminar on social media and how it works in PR. And we were thinking of perhaps broadcasting a podcast during our event. Would you say that would be something that would work?
During the event? What
So actually, at the event, having computer set up and a live feed.
So you'd be streaming it like we're doing this?
Okay. Right.
Yeah. There are advantages to, there's streaming video, which is what we're doing right now. And then there's capturing that so that you can have it in an MP3 or MP4 format or something if it's video, so that you can then download and use it later. Yeah.
Why don't you have a definition of what podcasting is, because this is actually a little different.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah, my definition of podcasting. Okay, there's I usually have graphics with this one. Podcasting, there are three aspects to me that define a podcast. There's what are they? There's
portability.
Portability, first of all. That it's unlike, say, streaming audio. I suppose that we will soon have technologies that let you stream video to a portable device. We don't have that very widespread yet. So there's at least the idea that you have at least the potential to carry it around with you. You're not tied to a desktop or a laptop to listen or to view it. So there's that portability, which means you can take it anywhere, anytime, do it whenever you want. There's subscribability, or I forget what the term I use for that. So the idea is that you're using an RSS feed. And does everybody know what RSS is? RSS stands for, depending on who you ask, it means really simple syndication. Syndication is the key word. It lets you subscribe to a podcast or a video cast, and then whenever a new release comes out, it gets downloaded automatically to your iTunes or Juice or whatever podcatcher you're using. Basically, a podcast is a blog with audio or video attachments to it. It uses the same technology, uses this RSS code that things like Google Reader and blog lines and all those things know how to read. And you subscribe, you add that link to it, so you don't have to go to the web page to get it. As soon as you turn on your computer, you turn on your blog reader, the material comes to you. And then the third part of it, to me, what makes it a podcast is what I like, being as a librarian, I call it seriality. It's a serial publication. A one-shot only thing, you can release it through an RSS feed, but no one's going to find it. It takes time to build an audience for a podcast, and so you want to have some kind of semi-regular schedule so that people will listen to the first ones and spread the word, and then start to listen to more and more. Yes?
I have a quick question, Jim. That being the case, it has to be serial, and I agree that's a very important thing. Can you just tell us how much time you have to put into that? Let's say you have a weekly episode. How much time of your time does it take to make that happen?
It varies a lot how much time it takes. Probably the biggest amount of my time is trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about this week. And then contacting someone to interview about it. And then the interview itself takes 30 minutes maybe, and then I do a little bit of editing and post it out. Yeah. So, editing, the interview takes as long as the interview takes. Half hour, 45 minutes maybe. Editing, I've gotten faster at editing and less picky about it. I don't try to edit out all the ums and things anymore. I spend a lot of time doing that. And then uploading it, and so it doesn't take that long once you get into the flow of it.
I was just going to say, I'm just new to podcasts since Christmas, and I'm fanatical about them. I subscribe to 57, and my favorite ones, I only have a 7-minute drive to work, so I don't get through them very fast, but my favorite ones are the 3-minute ones, because it's like it's a mind leap into a whole other world, Greek, Spanish, all these little science discoveries. And so I'm thinking the best way to get started would be to say to yourself, I'm going to do whatever, 5 minutes.
Although it depends. I mean, it can be hard to boil what you want to say down into 5 minutes. And I think you're right. I think there's a huge sort of market or audience for the very short podcasts. And that's why I generally try to keep mine to 30 minutes or so. But depending on the topic, and depending if it's something that I think my audience will listen to for an hour, then I'll do that.
Okay.
Do you know what kind of audience there is in podcasts? Like, do more people listen to an hour-long podcast, or do more people listen to a 5-minute-long podcast? Like, is it more for driving to work to listen to, or do people actually sit and as they're working, listen to a podcast?
I think it depends on your audience. If your audience, I obviously don't do a fitness podcast, but if I did a running podcast, I would tell you how long do people run? An hour? So I would do a running podcast for an hour.
But it can vary. It's not
right.
like there's a bigger audience for a longer podcast.
Right. If your audience is people who commute in New York City and have an hour and a half commute, then you could go on a long podcast. If you drive from 7 minutes to Toronto, you do a shorter one. Yes.
I'm confused, maybe. What sort of equipment is necessary? And like, say I was just want to create one on an individual basis. What sort of equipment would I
You could do a podcast right here. This MacBook has a microphone built in.
Okay.
You could do that. Just talk right into it.
So a computer with a microphone is all you need.
Yeah. Now the audio quality is not great with the built-in mic. So you might want to then move up to, like I should have brought it with me. I have this really cool snowball mic from Blue Mics.
Snowball mic?
Yeah, it's about the size of a softball. Do they play softball?
Yes.
All right, it's about that size.
And what's good? Is there a PC equivalent?
It works on either one, and it's a USB mic. It just plugs into your USB cable cord, and you don't need any preamp or any fancy things like that. Because I have no background in audio at all, and I learned everything from scratch.
That's it. That's all you need.
You just plug it in. Computer and a mic and some editing software, which again, it comes with your Mac, where you can to edit your audio. So with the Mac, it's GarageBand. With the other one that's widely used is Audacity. You just Google Audacity. It's either PC or Mac, and it's free software and it works really well. Yes.
So cost, what kind of cost?
The blue mic, the snowball mic is $99, and it's a really good quality mic. And I've been using that for a few weeks now, and it's really nice.
Sean has
yes, Sean.
That's it.
I actually got a plug.
Okay.
I'm a volunteer with deliverybox.org. We record public domain audiobooks, and we're going to have a session this afternoon about deliverybox. But we have found that deliverybox is an open community. Anyone can come in on and record, and it's a great place to learn how to make an audio file, where to get the software. I know I started off with just an analog mic plugged into my computer, and then I got some gadgetitis and kept moving out. But LibriVox is a great community to answer these questions. And LibriVox.org.
There are also systems like, I'm not quite sure what's going on with audio now, but there are systems that let you absolutely record and post your podcast directly onto the web. So as long as you have a microphone and a computer, you just record directly into a web page and it posts it for you. Well, that's the other part, is you have to have a hosting service like Libsyn, that I use, Liberated Syndication, that lets you upload your files, stores your files, and does the RSS feed for you automatically. I don't need to know anything about how RSS works. I don't need to know what that code means. I just upload it, and it's all web-based forms. I just upload my file, put in my show notes, which is the description of what the program's about, and click upload, and it's there. Yes.
Yeah, my question goes back to the interactivity piece.
Yeah.
We've been netcasting for years, and it's our big challenge has been how to build interactivity into what it is we've been doing for more than 10 years now. And I know podcasting is different. I know all kinds of ways, and you've just outlined that. Where's the interactivity in this?
I think it was
Upstairs in room 350.
What do you mean by interactivity, though? What do you mean by interactivity?
Two ways, so that if I'm broadcasting, what I'm doing is pushing stuff out to you. Sure, you may subscribe to it on your RSS feed, etc. But I want to know about that engagement part and how people can come back in at us.
When it comes to audio podcasting, there's a relatively new service called Blog Talk Radio.
Yes.
And what you do is you use your phone and you become, I don't know, I was going to say, what's his face that lost weight, but anyway, like a talk show host. So up to you speak, and up to 5 other people can call in and literally talk. So it's like, what's that guy?
Mike Bullard?
Well, him too, but no, the obnoxious American guy. No. Well, you could be Howard Stern or Rush Limbaugh or someone on that, whatever. So you say what time, and people call in. You can record this, record it as an MP3, and you can put it on your site. And the way it works is that they find advertisers for you, and hopefully related to your topic, and then you get half of the money, and they get the other half. And all you need really is a telephone.
There's a similar service that someone here at the conference does, a service called Talk Shoot. Right?
It's going on upstairs right now.
Right now? Yes. But yeah, there are, for a second. Also, I was just going to say, your interactivity depends a lot on your audience. I mean, the way you can do it are having comments enabled on your blog page. You can write comments. You can also have like a voicemail box, like using MyChingo or Skype or something like that. I get very few comments on mine. There's a couple cast called Me and the Bean, which is just a married couple in South Carolina or something like that. And for every episode they do, they have a feedback episode. They get that much comments.
Because if you're using Skype to do interviews with someone remotely, you can buy Hot Recorder for $30, or you can buy Pamela. Both of them are plugins, and there's different levels of Pamela. Get the Pro one, so not the free, not the really cheap, but the Pro one. There's one above it, and it's $29.95. That way you can record whoever you're speaking with, and then you can edit the file later if you wish. You use Skype, so then you can either use Hot Recorder, which I believe is $19.95 US, or you can use Pamela, which is a plugin which you can find through the Skype site, and get the $29.95 one.
There's also audio dynamite, I think it is one of that. The one that you can capture the audio feed from any application. Yeah. And again, we're getting the pro version of audio dynamite. I think it's audio dynamite.
I like to make it simple. I use Hot Recorder because the way it works is when I use Skype, which if you haven't used Skype, use Skype. It's free, download it. You can talk to people on computers. And the Hot Recorder plugin, it just starts automatically when the call starts. And then when I hang up, it saves it, and I've got my file, and I can use it.
And you can get the free version, or you can get the $19.95 version. And I believe the $19.95 version lets you record for as long as you want.
Right,
I think the
that's
free
right.
version has a limited time, which is annoying if you're speaking to someone for 30 minutes.
On your podcast, how do you make yours interactive? Can you cite some examples?
Well, like I say, it depends on your audience. You know, librarians, I guess, don't talk that much.
It's not really set up as interactive. It's more one way.
Well,
you do collect voices.
I do the interviews, and I
Yeah.
do the interviews, so that's sort of the program itself is interactive.
Yeah.
And I always invite comments in and invite people to call in.
Or do you invite?
At the end of the show, I say, here, please leave your comments, or email me, or send a voice message to this phone book. And but I just don't get a lot of comments. And some programs do.
We've gone over time, so one more question and then we'll stop.
From an education perspective, big phrase now is professional learning to community. So back to content, what I can imagine is sharing scenarios at the end of the day. You know, how did you deal with?
Okay.
And so lengthy time to the audience. What do they have time for at the end of the day? You know, a vignette or something. Anyway, I don't know.
I have nothing to close all this up with. I hope it gave you some ideas. And I know, Connie, I don't hear your both days.
I hear both days, and you have questions for me, but I think there's a lot of great content. Not all of it is at expert level. I don't have a podcast myself. I'm in the same boat as all of you, so hopefully we'll get some great ideas as to how to do all of this.
If anybody wants the links to what I mentioned, you can just go to reallygoodfriend.com. That's my blog, and you can click on my email. Really Good Friend.